We got the good hospitalization studies out of the UK and South Africa, Jim. Paxlovid, of course, now cleared, waiting on Merck. You opened your show last night by saying maybe Omicron this time is finally on the run.
Look, I have to believe it is, if only because something that David's talked about endlessly, the antiviral. If Pfizer can get things beyond 220,000, maybe the government needs to give that formula to a lot of other drug companies. And Omicron takes the course of what's happened in South Africa, and we get some sort of vaccine from Walter Reed. It's hard to believe that we won't be in a much better place in the spring. Although, David, I'm sure as soon as people hear that, they'll say, well, then the Fed has to tighten even more. I say give us a break. If we can get the public health situation under control, David, I do think that, therefore, the country will get back on track with or without Fed tightening.
Yeah. And, as Carl mentioned, of course, we are starting to finally get that data that we've been waiting for that does show Omicron is milder as well, Jim. I don't know if that changes people's behavior in the near term, even before the antivirals become widely available.
Right, but David, we're stuck with this sample in the United States of I don't know what's happening. Omicron just really seems to be very much concentrated in the Northeast. We haven't really seen the outbreak in the South, although there's some in Texas, that would indicate that there's a difference between people who are vaccinated and not. Although the president has endlessly said, and Pete Buttigieg, the secretary, just said, look, if you're not vaccinated, you got to get vaccinated. David, do you have anything about the difference between unvaccinated and vaccinated and Omicron?
Well, I think we know that, that there's a significant difference potentially in symptoms or likelihood of being asymptomatic. Sure, Jim. But, as for data, I mean, I've been wondering about sort of data and comparing if you're vaccinated, fully vaccinated at this point, let's call it 3 shots versus getting the flu. I guess it's still conceivably worse, although not clear that it is with Omicron. Yeah, well,
I just think that we got to see whether we're going to have a day where we have 400,000 people who get it. We're going to have to see whether we have super spreader. But more important for Carl, we have to see whether it peaks, that it goes as quickly as it's going in the UK, going South Africa. And if that's the case, that's that theory that I have, which is that you are going to be in a situation where it's entirely possible that we are peaking. And if we peak and 2022 starts out strong, I think that instead of the numbers that we saw this morning, which were anemic, I think we get a series of really good numbers and we can handle 2 or 3 tightenings and be able to continue to advance.
Yeah, it would be nice to return to that problem, I guess, Jim, for the markets at least. I did notice in the UK, there's an estimate out this morning that 1 in every 45 UK residents had COVID last week. Versus 1 in 60 in the prior week. You mentioned the president, and I know you've been critical about the testing rollout. David Muir of ABC did talk to him about not just the empty shelves of testing, but the supply chain issues and whether all of that leading into the end of the year has been a failure. Take a listen.
Empty shelves, no test kits. Is that a failure?
No, I don't think it's a failure. I think it's you could argue that we should have known a year ago, 6 months ago, 2 months ago, a month ago. I've ordered 500 million of the pills, 500 million pills. 500 million test kits that are going to be available to be sent to every home in America if anybody wants them. But the answer is, I wish I had thought about ordering 500 million pills 2 months ago before COVID hit here.
But we're nearly 2 years into this pandemic. You're a year into the presidency. Empty shelves and no test kits in some places 3 days before Christmas when it's so important. Is that good enough?
No, nothing's been good enough.
Yeah. We're going to find out more. Obviously he says pills, he means the test kits, but we are slowly, Jim, assembling more and more into the toolbox. Novavax, of course, on Squawk this morning, AstraZeneca, the antivirals. And if we can put that last piece into place and give people the ability to know if they're positive, that's going to be a big thing.
I really feel that the president's not credible on the tests, and not just because he called them pills. I think that there aren't any of size available in this country. You have to go overseas to get them. Is he going overseas? The surfeit really is in China. Do we want Chinese test kits? Maybe he can get some from Britain. But right now, Those kits are not available in the United States. So why doesn't he just say, look, I ordered them? This is very much like masks. Remember when President Trump said, well, we got the masks? We didn't have the masks. Why don't these people just say, listen, we don't know. We're going to try to get this stuff, but we don't know. Because I know from my reporting behind the scenes, Carl, they don't have the goods. They don't have the horses.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody, I think a lot of people doing their own reporting behind the scenes could tell you the exact same thing, David. It's very difficult to get a test of any kind. And even if you're able to get in to get a PCR, the delay on the results makes the timing of those results almost irrelevant.
Yeah, and timing is so important, such an important component of this right now. Again, people who are triple vaxxed don't seem overly concerned about getting particularly sick, but they certainly do about the disruption to their lives if they were forced to, as you're expected to still, quarantine for 10 days, as the two of you know very well. Jim, how many more days you got left?
I've got 3, which means that I'm going to the Eagles-Giants game. And going proudly, that's kind of what I got to tell you is that when the Eagles go to the Super Bowl, I should be I'm going to be like double, triple, everything vaccinated by then. Which do you think is less likely? That I'll be Superman or that we'll be in the Super Bowl?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I don't think the Eagles are going to be in the Super Bowl.